Today we have Devon on the podcast. Welcome back, Devon. We have a funny story about this, everyone.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I'm like sweating. I'm like, is this thing going to just suddenly explode on me? Like, technology. While I love some of the benefits that technology has brought, like this wouldn't even be possible, obviously, without technology. It is so frustrating how just at the whim of like a little thing that I have zero understanding of, these conversations are. But yes, good to be here again.
It's funny. I'll introduce you in a second, but I was looking back on the transcript of what I could read from last time, and the first thing we spoke about was how good technology is, and because we can do this remotely. And I was like, how ironic, because for context to everyone, because they didn't hear the first episode, the internet was dodgy, and I actually lost Devon. I don't know, maybe like 20 or 30 minutes, and we kept recording because I was like, hopefully it's just, we can get everything, but it was just me. So the video was just me going,
interesting.
Like I couldn't even hear what you were saying. So I'm very grateful that you came back on because it was such a good conversation. So we'll have another amazing conversation. I'm sure it won't be the
see
same.
If we take it some new places.
So for everyone listening, Devon is a communication and relationship coach, helping singles find love through real-world engagement. He has had over 16 years professional experience in the field and has worked with over thousands of individuals and businesses. And after last time we spoke, I was actually so excited, told everyone, I was like, we've got it. This is going to be such a great episode because we're talking about how to date in real life and not online. And I know that's what everyone wants. And so we're just so desperate to get this out there, which is really cool.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. I'm very excited. And, again, it's just funny that we're happy that we have the technology, but magic happens in the real world,
Yeah.
And that's where I'd love to just get into that with you and
yes.
Like how to make something happen in the real world. And also just to like kind of, I work with singles and I work with individuals who want to get more confident in their dating life. But ultimately, if I was to, loosen my focus a little bit beyond this conversation and kind of give a broader take on what I do, it's really just communication and connection and confidence. And so while your listeners are listening to this, I'd love for you guys to think about it in the context of relationships romantically, but also zoom out a little bit and think about how your romantic life can't live in a vacuum and it has to coexist with other areas of your life, your career, which is in many ways dependent on your ability to connect with people and build rapport and network, etc. And then your community and your connection with platonic friends, which I think, through COVID, we've all recognized that COVID feels so long ago now, but I think there's going to be repercussions for decades, most likely, socially from that. And I think we all just have this very clear realization about how important just having buds is and being able to just go for a walk with them, or even just random strangers that you just can, sit next to at a coffee shop and strike up a conversation. Like these things have become, I think the importance of those has never been quite as clear, at least, in our lifetimes as it is now.
Yeah. I actually love the frame that you just put around that because it's so interesting. People always come to me for support in dating or relationships, obviously, but then that does we end up always talking about some other form of relationship, whether that be at work or family or, because the skills are transferable. So exactly. I just think that's so important that you said that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think romance is kind of like the point of the spear as far as people are very clear. Like, I need to get this handled. Like, I need a partner. I need to feel connected and respected and loved by someone. But really, it's just like everything is a microcosm of this ultimately anxiety that we experience when we're butting up against other people. And so, while the pain point that drives action for a lot of people is around romance, I would say you could look at every facet of your life and see how you show up socially. And there is a kind of a grain or a pattern that is similar. And so I think being able to look at it through that lens is really beneficial for people, because it, I think we can get a lot of shame in our romantic lives when we've struggled in that area. And, you can have shame in the other areas, but for some reason, the other areas don't come with the same kind of energy. It's kind of like, it's something that I'd like to work on. I think I could be better with people. I think I could do better in my job, but the romantic stuff really has this weight to it. So when you can take the lens and shift it from your romantic life and look at other areas of your life that are less triggering, we'll say, I think you can really actually have a pretty profound impact on your romantic life by working, as you say, that when you're working with your clients as well, when you're working with these kind of peripheral, they're not really peripheral, but they weren't the original focus that the person may have come to you with, because it's less charged. It's just like, this is something I want to work on as well. Let's do that. And, you can kind of face those challenges maybe with a little more levity than you would the romantic one, which feels just so big for so many people.
I actually said this to a client last week because we were talking about boundaries, and I said, where is the lowest hanging fruit in terms of boundaries? Like, where would we be able to set boundaries in place where it felt the easiest, and
Beautiful.
that sometimes is at work, so it's same thing, hey?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Totally. Yeah, beautiful.
What are some of do you see common patterns in terms of communication with people? Like when you're saying if it's the same in their romantic relationships as work, as other places, what are some of the things you see come up?
Yeah, that's great. I mean, the fact that you said boundaries is, I think, perfect. Like assertiveness is probably one of the biggest leverage points someone can work on, and also a very scary one. And it's funny because it's as simple as, getting in the habit of saying no to people. If you tend to be a very kind of amenable person, and you just want to be nice and you want to keep the peace, you tend to be more passive. Just saying no, even when someone's like, do you want to give us your email so we can email you a receipt? Or, you're at the till and you just have these opportunities where they're built in to try to get a little something else out of you, and just to be able to say no, and not even like, you could say no, thank you. I think no, thank you is fine, but just to say no, like feel what that feels like, just to be like, no.
I have a funny story about this. Sorry to interrupt you, but
please.
You saying that made me feel uncomfortable. So that's obviously my own stuff, right? Because I would always just give out my email. But when I went out for dinner with my husband last week, went to this club and you had to join because that's the way it works in Australia if you're local. Anyway, so we joined and then they said, can we have your email? He's like, no. And I was like, what? What? Why are you not giving it to them? And he's like, I don't want any more emails. I do not need. And they're like, but you'll get our specials and you'll get like the meal of the week. And he's like, nope. Yeah. But it's so funny what happened in me. I was like, oh, this is how are you doing this?
Yeah. Totally. That's great. I mean, and also so good of you to I'm sure this is just how you show up in the world generally, but to be vulnerable, to say, oh yeah, I'm still working on these things as well. I think that's really important for your listeners and your clients. Yeah. Like I constantly refer to myself as just a student of this thing. Yeah. I mean, those little opportunities, especially, and I think it is something good for you to look at. It's like, what happens when you have authority, when you have, a social positioning, where you can feel confident and say, you're working with a client and you're probably quite boundaried and you're like, this is not an appropriate time to text me. This is, but then when there's like a status dynamic where things are a bit more fluid, where, you want to get into this club, you want to be you maybe just even want those, updates on deals and stuff. But to be able to recognize patterns within ourselves where we shift to like get something, you know, and maybe it has served you. And I don't want to like, analyze you right now, but like maybe it has served you in some way to be available and to say yes and to avoid tension with strangers.
Absolutely.
I would also say, as a woman, the tendency to want to avoid tension with strangers is smart. You know, there's obviously that one didn't sound like there was any possible threat. It just sounds like someone being like, hey, but if it's a pattern, if it's a habit where you are protecting yourself generally with strangers, then in those moments it comes up and you habitually go into like, no, you just give them your email and then there's no conflict. So I'd say like assertiveness is a big one that people bring to me. I'd say there's a tendency kind of along the lines of what you were talking about, where people just want to keep the peace and be nice. Ultimately, nice is a kind of a bad word now. Kind is a good word, but nice comes with all these connotations of like nice with like some kind of shadow exchange in my mind of like, oh no, I'm doing this so that you do this. That's why I'm being nice to you.
It's interesting that you say that about kind, because so many of my clients, when we talk about being assertive or boundaries, what comes up for them is that they're being rude.
Right.
So if they feel like they're being too blunt and there's not enough like pleases in there, or like even on an email, if there's not enough smiley faces or there's just a full stop, there's this rudeness that they assume that they're being.
Sure.
Yeah. Or perhaps they've told they're being.
Yeah. And so let's talk like on a very high level about a concept that people are often triggered by, but is an important context for this pattern. And that's the concept of status. We like to call it social positioning. And because status is kind of triggering, but also status can feel very static and locked in, whereas social positioning communicates that this is a mobile thing that you're involved in. And so now imagine you're sending an email to your boss, and how many smiley faces and pleases and thank yous and all those sorts of things you might send just to, keep them appeased. And then think of the reverse. Think about the boss sending an email to their subordinate, and how many pleases and smiley faces you would see in there. And maybe one or two, that would be reasonable, but it wouldn't be this overload. And so what happens that really messes people up, and there's like, we could just go on and on about this, but I'll just give a quick kind of look at someone's life. You grow up, you're told, to be passive, essentially. You're taught children are to be seen but not heard. You're taught follow the rules. It's my house, my rules. And, there's good reason for a lot of those things. Kids don't have fully developed brains. So yeah, you should probably give them some guidelines. But essentially, we're trained to get in line and be good little humans. And then you're put out into the real world and you get a job. And at that job, you're again told, be a good little worker bee and get in line. And so from a young age, I guess school as well is absolutely causing that as well. So it's like home and school and, sports and all these things are essentially training people to be passive. And so then you're moving into a world, and this is where I kind of got a bit of a tinfoil hat little thing here, but I don't even think it's that much of a tinfoil hat. These systems are designed to keep people in line.
Absolutely.
But you'll see the people at the top of the food chain don't play by these rules. It's like rules for thee, not for me. It's like the king or the queen, they don't care about, or the CEO, they don't care about all the getting in line and proper, and they just don't care about that stuff. I think a lot of films showcase that really well, where the servants and the maids and the kind of peasant people are much more like, oh, gotta get in line. And the kings and queens, you know, unless they're hanging out with each other, when they're interacting with people that are quote unquote lower status than them, they are totally free to behave in any way they want. And so a big part of what I teach people is how to first have like a belief in yourself that you're royalty, and not like in a pompous way, but just like you are. You're like this magical, perfect thing that has landed on this planet and is experiencing reality, and you are royal, you are worthy, you are magic and powerful, and then start acting like it, you know, start showing up in a way that communicates that to the world.
Yes.
And so that is starting to behave from a higher social position. And that would be assertive. You know, that's clearly setting boundaries, that's making requests, that's going after what you want, while also, you know, the beauty of assertiveness is it also respects that other people have their own journey that they're on, and they're also royal, and that they should be able to say no to your requests. And
yes,
and that's okay. And so, yeah, I think that just like a context that I like to give is that we've been trained to be low status, and we have to kind of reclaim our birthright to be royal and to ask for what we want in life. We can't guarantee that we're going to get it, but we're sure as hell a lot more likely to if we ask.
Yeah.
And that's assertive.
Jane, it's just I was explaining this to a client yesterday, probably not very well because I've been sick, but it's so much clearer when you know where someone stands, right? Then you get the choice about what you do next, and then they get the choice about what they do next, rather than everyone just trying to please everyone.
Oh.
If we all just clear about what we want, then you can react accordingly. But it's just, there's this confusion out there because everyone's like, what do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? Like,
it's the worst.
Yeah.
And it also breeds distrust.
Yes,
you know,
of course it does.
Unconsciously. Because I feel like I have to be careful around you because you always say everything's okay. But then I hear a few weeks later that you've actually kind of mad at me. And wait, I thought we were cool, but you know. And so one of the things that I love to get my students doing is saying no. To, like, genuinely when they want to say no, not just like, okay, we got to get a no in today, but it's like start saying no when it's a no, because then people trust your yeses.
Yes. And
it's
you trust your yeses, right? Like,
and
you trust yourself.
Your yeses. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
100%. And that's attractive.
Yeah, it's so good. Yes. Okay. I want to switch gears because we spoke about this last time, and I feel like it's really important to cover in terms of like from people moving from dating on apps to dating in real life. How can some of these social skills that you've spoken about and more, like how can they get comfortable with doing this in real life? How do they learn these new skills that are old skills that they, you know, should have?
Right. The most ancient skills. Just on that topic, it's funny how we think of, you know, these as soft skills.
Yeah.
And like hard skills are like legit, and soft skills are like, well, whatever. You have them, you don't, whatever. But it's like, how many hard skills from 5 years ago are still applicable? Like in tech, at least, you know, maybe half of them are still applicable with AI and all these things. Like most programming or any of these types of things are just obsolete. Whereas this stuff will be totally cutting edge for a very long time, you know?
Yeah.
So the question is, how do people kind of get back to real life?
Yeah, like and where do they start? You know, like I have so many people who are just over the apps. They're over dating online.
Totally.
They're burnt out from it. But then they're caught in this like chasm of like, I don't know what to do next. Like, I see there's dating events out there, but I don't love them. Speed dating here is a shambles and doesn't usually go down well for people. So, and what I'm finding here is that a lot of dating events are catered for either younger people, like let's say 20 to 30, and a lot of my
Okay.
clients are like 30 to 45, say, and there's
Right.
nothing there for them. And they're the ones
Right.
that are looking for partners. And
Yeah.
and I know
Yeah.
I have a funny story just really quickly. Last
Yeah.
time we spoke about this, Devon was like, pickleball is like where you need to go, right? And then
of course I talk about
I was
pickleball. I don't
like-
remember that, but of course I did. Can't
and
stop.
this is so funny. So I'd never heard of pickleball. And I was like, yeah, tell me what it is. Anyway, fast forward, I don't know how long ago since we spoke, but about a month ago, I went to my kid who's 4, his kindergarten interview. And we leave the kindergarten interview and the head of junior school says, oh, out there, they're playing pickleball. And so what do I
Yeah.
say? Oh, I heard that's the new place to meet people. Like the head of junior school cares about dating. And she's like, oh, great.
Oh, well, I'll make a note.
But they were playing pickleball at the school.
Well, good for them. I'm happy to hear it's spreading. So the essence of the question is like, how do we get back to that beautiful natural state of human connection that we all just used to do? And yeah, there's vessels for that through apps or like websites or whatever, like Meetup or these dating events. But I think of those environments as like a pond at best.
Yeah.
Because everyone in there it kind of feels safe. So everyone's kind of comfortable to a certain degree. But because you're all there for the same reason, you don't have the same opportunity for magic as you do if you're able to engage in the real world. So, if these events are like ponds, then the real world is like the ocean. When they say there's plenty of fish in the sea, they're not talking about the pond, they're talking about the sea. And so you're only going to meet so many people. And here's the big thing that people always say, well, how do I know if they're single or not? I don't want to make it weird. If I see someone at Whole Foods, I don't want to, like, what do I do if I don't know if they're single? And, I'm kind of a dick about it, but I'm like, you ask them, it's kind of, that's what the mouth does, is it asks questions. It's like, how far back do I need to take this social skills training? No, so, and then, obviously I get the question. The question is like, it's uncomfortable and I don't want it to be weird. And what if they aren't single? And, if they're not single, then there's no offense. It's not awkward. It's just like, no. And you're like, oh, okay, well, had to shoot my shot, So the skills that I teach, and everyone can do a little bit of these, and everyone could benefit from doing a lot more of these. So understanding body language, understanding what you're communicating, but also being able to read what other people are communicating, being able to maintain solid body language that projects confidence even when you feel nervous. This is a big thing. People have all these little tells, these little things that they do that betray their nervousness and put it out into the world. And so, being able to maintain solid body language, very important. And again, being able to read other people so that you can calibrate your body language to make them feel good and feel comfortable. Another thing would be conversational skills. So conversational skills makes up a big part of what we teach. So I'd say body language and then conversation are like the two kind of big categories. And within body language, there's all these different things to do. And within conversation, there's, how to use humor really effectively. Humor is one of the most powerful rapport building skills you can have. But if you use the wrong kind of humor, you don't create attraction. People might like you, but they're not attracted to you. They feel like kind of uncomfortable, maybe. They want you to...
Like the head of junior school. that would be a good example.
Yeah,
that was
maybe.
the wrong humor.
Yeah. And I mean, like, the thing is, I wouldn't actually say that was the wrong humor. I like that because it's risque. In general, I would say risque humor is generally pretty good. You have to know how to pull that back. But, when we're talking about dating, being able to take some risks and being able to, again, maintaining good body language, if the joke, as it sounds like with you, didn't really land, you being able to kind of laugh it off and be like, but I guess they're not ready for that yet. Something like that. Being able to kind of pivot on it a little bit. So humor is very important, but using the right kind of humor at the right time is necessary. And then assertiveness, being able to ask for what you want, but also being able to be boundaried. And this is the other thing is people will say, well, what if I get into a conversation, then it's awkward? It's like, then you just end the conversation. And that's an assertive thing to do. I'll give your listeners a really good little gem. So next time you're in a conversation that you want to exit, and this is an important skill because if you don't have this, it's like having no brakes on your car. If you don't feel like you could get out of a situation, you're less likely to try to put yourself into it. So next time you're in a conversation that you want to get out of, so there's different environments that this could apply in, networking event, singles event, but it could also apply in a grocery store or any other situation. You're chatting with the person, and I'll do the networking event one because it's or singles events, the same thing. You're chatting with a person, and ideally, best case scenario, they make an attempt at a joke and you laugh at it. Or if they're not making jokes because they're boring and you want to get out of there for that reason, you make a joke. Maybe they laugh, maybe they don't. You laugh and you say, oh man, okay, well, and you got to do this with like a really nice, like fun energy. And you go, oh, okay, well, great getting to know you. I better go schmooze. I better go network. I better go do this singles thing. Because what you're doing is you're framing this interaction as like, oh, I'm now hanging out with my best bud. But that's not what we came here for. We came here to do the thing. So you frame this as the fun thing and that is the work. And then you exit. So I call this the pedestal exit. And it's, you put them up on a pedestal and you say, well, it's been a pleasure. I got to run. It's the same thing at a grocery store. You're chatting with someone. You realize after you're chatting with them for a little while, you're not actually that interested in, and you looked in their basket and you're like, ew, that's not the kind of thing that I want to see in my cupboard. And you say, well, listen, it's been awesome chatting with you. Enjoy the rest of your day. I got to get back to shopping. Yeah. And it's just that easy. And the thing is, I think what happens is people think it has to be perfect. People think they need to just nail it. People think that they're going to, your clients and mine as well, think, oh, I'm going to be rude. And you just have to let go of that story. And you have to recognize that better to be a little awkward or a little rude with someone else than to continuously dishonor yourself by not going after what you want or by not speaking your truth.
Absolutely. Amazing. And also, I think you just have to practice it. Like that's what I always say to clients, like just experiment, because usually once they start putting boundaries in place or start being assertive or start saying no, they get a response which is very different to the one they assumed they were going to get.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. That and then also like, practicing in a safe space. So one of the hallmarks and kind of tenets of our training is drills. We will figure out a situation that our student wants to work on, and we'll set up a dynamic, and then we'll role play it. And we'll role play it over and over, and we'll get the wording just right. We'll just dial it in, and then once we get the wording right, okay, now you got the wording, let's focus on body language now. And so we do it, 30 times. So when they show up to have that conversation with their boss or with their partner or with, whoever, they just have it built in as like, it's just like this second nature because they've done. There was a study where they had chess players who were evenly matched play, but some of them just showed up to play and others worked on one particular strategy before going in. And they found that the people who worked on that one particular strategy, just like a little bit of prep work, won, I don't remember the number, but significantly more, noticeably more than they should have based on being evenly matched. So a little bit of prep, a little bit of drilling, a little bit of planning gets unreal outcomes in the long haul of your life.
So good.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything else. I mean, there's a million other things, but we'll go into another topic and go anyway.
I'm curious. I got one for you. I'm curious about your clients. Because you work primarily with women.
Mm.
What do your clients wish men would do more of? What do your clients like kind of go, oh, I wish a guy would be a bit more like this?
Yeah. I think initially, they would like the man to lead more. So to organize the date, to be the one to ask out, to ask the questions, to just lead more to get the date and lead more on the date.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a massive one. Mm.
That's a massive one. And so what we've found is that there's two ways that dating is sort of for men's side of it. There was like this traditional approach, which was be overly nice, be very accommodating, the perfect gentleman, try to present yourself in a certain way so that you will be selected. And that was kind of, I think for a very long time, that was the strategy that men took. Then in like the early 2000s, the PUA community, are you familiar with that community, that term? The pickup artist. It's like these seduction specialists.
Yes.
They came into the scene and sort of swung the pendulum over into bad boy and making the woman try to chase them and creating a dynamic where they would lead, but almost in a domineering way. Mm-hmm. Like what they found is that women were getting bored with these kind of nice guys. And so they started behaving like bad boys and over the top. And now what's happened is women have gotten wise to that and they are sick of that manipulation. So the nice guys were manipulating in kind of like a passive aggressive way. And then the bad boys were manipulating in kind of an aggressive way. And so what we at Social Fluency, we work with men and women, but when we work with men, when we work with women, it's helping them figure out how to attract the guy that we're about to describe. Yeah. And that is a flexible mindset. It's like if we have the nice guy and the bad boy, we have in the center, we have the good man. And the good man is assertive. He's able to create massive attraction with his partner because he is both kind and loving, but also, willing to push boundaries, willing to move things forward, willing to ask for what he wants, but to do it all with respect and love, as like a centerpiece. And so one of the things is like being like for the man to be able to lead from a place of like authentic leadership, not like, oh, I have to lead, so I'm going to, really swing the pendulum towards this, like feels very, aggressive and domineering version versus an integrated, genuine, authentic leader. And so that's what we try to teach men to be more of. And that's what we try to help women attract more of is that,
so
type
give
of
me
man.
Give me your tiny takeaway on how women can attract more of those men.
Part of it is integrating a lot of those habits within themselves. And then another part of it is a very nuanced understanding of what those behaviors look like. And then also what that type of man is attracted to. And he's not just attracted to like the female version of that. He's attracted to a kind of like a counterbalance to that energy that he brings. Now, I'm not like super into the concept of like masculine, feminine polarity. I think there's something to it, but I don't hang my hat too heavily on that. I think we all have all of it in us. And so I think for women, if they want to attract a partner like that, it's okay. First, you got to find out where those guys are in your area. You have to get like a new radar system on like a lens that you can just see those guys like a heat signature. And what you're looking for is a relaxed, dominant, calm, confident energy. And then, okay, so this, I might lose some of your, no, I don't think so. This is just like, it's on the risque side. I know we only have a couple minutes, so I'll leave people with like a juicy little kind of cliffhanger here. But women are all going after the top 3, 4%, 10% of men, let's say, on the apps. But there are so many great men from 90 to 60 of the kind of social hierarchy that are high quality men, great guys, lots of potential. And I'd say if women can see a man's character and she can see potential, you know, they always say don't date potential. I say that's absolute bullshit. You absolutely date potential. We are all potential all the time. And if you can't see where something's going, then, you know, you can't take a snapshot and be like, that's what reality is. Like there's trajectories happening. So do you have something there?
Yes, no, I agree with you. Just that the reality can't be so far away from the projection. Like you can't.
Yes.
I don't want people making jumping like moves of like he's going to be amazing because he says he is, but isn't showing up at all now. You know?
And the thing is, saying it is nothing. That saying is not trajectory. Being it and seeing where someone is moving towards, I think is incredibly important. There's like it's a very Canadian thing for me to end with here, but there's a statement from Wayne Gretzky that says, you don't go to where the puck is, you go to where the puck's going to be. And I think that's just true of life. You know, everything is in motion, everything is changing, everything's evolving. So I think for women to be able to see patterns and to really understand what those patterns are that they're looking for and what those patterns look like in their most true stripped down form, and then to be able to see those in people and then to be able to build connection and attraction with those people and then to build a life together. Because, you know, I just celebrated meeting my wife 8 years ago.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. And in fact, I have, maybe you can add a link to it. I have like we tell the story of how we met, and it's a really cute video. And it basically teaches what I teach. Like I break down because I picked her up at a party. When I met her, we were, you know, it was 8 years ago. We were who we were and we were attracted to each other, but we both saw the possible greatness within each other. And I think that's how I like to leave it, is like get good at seeing greatness in people. First of all, see it in yourself, and then get good at seeing greatness in people and be able to develop relationships with that greatness and foster that greatness. And that's how you become like a power couple, is when you both lift each other up. You know, that's something that my dad always says, lift up what lifts you up. And that is, I think, you know, one of the keys to a successful relationship.
So beautiful. Let's end there.
Okay, well, I'm glad we got through it and we didn't. Well, I'm glad the mic didn't drop.
I could hear you clearly the whole time. It was amazing.
Glorious.
Thank you
well, I really
so much.
That.
I really enjoyed it too. That was, you know, I love when this stuff happens in terms of like we got such other magic out of this conversation. Like
totally
it was so different to last time. Yeah, but really cool, really cool. So thank you so much. I feel like we could
do it over and over and over. That was great.
I know. Amazing.
Well, let's do it again sometime.
Thank you.